Southern African region continues to grapple with really high levels of poverty and inequality and multiple vulnerabilities, hence the reason why the sub-region is performing poorly in all metrics of poverty and inequality. And I will highlight a few key facts. Number one, Southern Africa is, and this is a fact, the poorest region of the African continent, both in terms of monetary and multidimensional measures of poverty. About half, around 45% of its population is living in extreme poverty, which is a paradox, as the region is also the one of the richest, relatively more developed, industrialized, and largely stable relative to other regions of the continent. Poverty threatens the attainment of the most sustainable development goals, as well as Agenda 2063, as it encompasses deprivations in virtually all aspects of human development and is often a larger symptom of challenges in development processes, showing up in poor metrics on life expectancy, literacy, education, income, standards of living, and quality of life, amongst others. The sub-region is also the most unequal of all regions in the world, and this is big. It's not just in Africa, but in the world, both in terms of distribution of income and wealth. We have, for Southern Africa, 6 of the 10 most unequal countries in the world in terms of income are found in this region.
And our meeting objectives do encompass a multifaceted exploration of poverty, inequality, and regional economic integration. This meeting does hold the promise of transformative change, as it aims to critically examine the draft report on the status of poverty and inequality in Southern Africa, also to identify gaps and propose policy solutions and promote really invaluable experience sharing amongst all of you. We are also here to assess the potential of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement in reducing poverty, inequality, and vulnerability in the region. The multi-dimensional nature of poverty and Southern Africa's paradoxical high rates of poverty and the structural causes of poverty, they demand our attention. We mustn't allow the normalization of the paradox which my colleagues mentioned. That is the paradox between being middle income or upper middle income and also being amongst the most unequal in the world. In parallel, in these 2 days, we also wish to emphasize the fundamental importance of regional integration for promoting peace, stability, and economic growth in Southern Africa. And we also recognize the pivotal role of the SADC and the COMESA in driving regional integration. That cannot be overstated.
The effective and full implementation of the AFCFTA agreement is a complex endeavour that will take years to achieve. It shall demand patience, perseverance, commitment and discipline from all Africans, and above all, intensified collaboration and cooperation among all Southern African and African member states, and a change of mindset in the way that we do business with each other. The United Nations Economic Commission for Africa has proved to be a reliable, committed and steadfast partner in supporting all the Southern African member states at formulating their national AFCFTA strategies and action plans. Currently, all our member states have formulated or are in the course of formulating their national AFCFTA strategies. 47 countries have now ratified the AFCFTA. In our region, Eswatini was the first to do so, followed by Namibia, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Mauritius, Angola, Lesotho, Malawi, Zambia, Botswana, and the latest being Mozambique. All the countries of ECASRO SA have now ratified the AFCFTA, and we hope that we will be able now to continue the partnership with UNICA, the UN family and other development partners to engage in the behemoth task of fully implementing the national strategies.
I really want to take this opportunity to thank UNICA for bringing together an inclusive group of experts, which I'm confident will add great value to the discussions and outcomes during the next 2 days. Today, once we are done with the formal procedures, we will interrogate issues around poverty within the region and how the AFCFTA can assist in containing the high levels of poverty and inequality in Africa. The Botswana government is committed to addressing poverty and inequality, and this is key as it contributes to Botswana's attainment of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG Goal number 1 on poverty eradication and number 10 that speaks to reduced inequalities. In this regard, our new wealth creation has continued to focus on the implementation of micro and small enterprises projects in agriculture, housing, social protection, women empowerment, and education sectors to create employment and improve livelihoods with the ultimate aim of poverty eradication for our citizens. I'm pleased that this meeting will focus on interrogating the status of poverty and inequality and their interplay with vulnerability in Southern Africa, as well as assess progress made in meeting national, regional, and international agenda, such as the African Union Agenda of 2063 and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. All this in the quest to steer policy and action to accelerate progress towards poverty, inequality, and vulnerability reduction in the sub-region, and to meet related commitments at various levels, as well as leverage opportunities thereafter presents to addressing the poverty and inequality challenges.
The main objective is to provide you experts with a platform to critically examine the draft report on the status of poverty and inequality in Southern Africa. And just to ensure that this report is robust and is able to inform policy and actions towards tackling poverty and inequality with the related vulnerabilities in the region.
The key functions of the ECA is one of being a think tank, the other one is being the one of convening, and the other one of providing technical assistance. As part of our think tank function, we commission studies such as this one. So this meeting is basically for experts to really provide comments on how the study can be improved, add additional insights, so that after this meeting, the report can be revised by the consultant, and thereafter it will be published.
So the objective of the report are to provide an in-depth understanding of the poverty and inequality situation in the sub-region, to highlight variations in poverty, inequality, and vulnerability within and between countries, to suggest policy options that would bolster the capacity of countries to reduce poverty and inequality, and also to foster experience sharing within the sub-region in terms of the best practices and lessons to reduce poverty. Why is Southern Africa poor and unequal? We have the colonial legacies, structural factors, and a series of other factors as being the contributing factors to poverty and inequality in the sub-region. Of course, like I said, this is not going to be exhaustive. There are several other factors that might not be considered, and that's because of the complexity of this subject matter, and also the launch of an adherence to national development plans, and the safety net to do with support for vulnerable populations, including cash transfers to poor families, food subsidies, and health care services. Infrastructure development, some countries have taken an effort, including construction of roads, bridges, water supply systems, to improve access to basic services and promote economic growth. Job creation is also and entrepreneurship promotion is also being promoted across the countries. So what are the recommendations that we are making? So recommendations are to do with continued working to boost inclusive economic growth because of this protracted relationship between economic growth and reduction of poverty and vulnerability to poverty. It is important for countries to continue in that direction. Also foster multidimensional approaches, as these factors are complex in nature. So they require a multidimensional approach to address the identified root causes of poverty and inequality. So governments should also implement policies to provide financial and technical support to help SMEs.
This session is looking at how we can leverage the African Continental Free Trade Area to address the challenges we spoke about in the morning: poverty, inequality, as well as the associated vulnerabilities. Analytical framework, how he has been able to assess the impact of the AFCFTA and also the findings in general.
So the objectives of the study have in a way been indicated. It is to analyze and produce a report on the impact of the AFCFTA on poverty and inequality reduction in Southern Africa. Produce a report where the findings can guide implementation. And I think that for me is a key area to focus on, because given where the AFCFTA is at, its implementation is critical, and guiding that implementation is going to be important. The third objective is to examine the key issues of the AFCFTA implementation in Southern Africa and the potential for poverty and inequality reduction in the sub-region. It is also to provide a critical analysis of the challenges and opportunities presented by the AFCFTA, and then foster understanding, promote dialogue, and this is what we are doing, and then of course proffer policy options and measures examining the potential of the AFCFTA in reducing poverty. The objectives are to create a single market for goods and services, and facilitate movement of persons in order to deepen the economic integration of the African continent. We are also looking at creation of a liberalized market. Now, there's creation of a single market and then the creation of a liberalized market, and then contributing to the movement of capital and natural persons, and lay the foundations for the establishment of a continental customs union. We need an active private sector that collaborates with government in the member states, each with very clear roles. And then, of course, we need to stimulate or catalyze growth of investment, production, trade, and employment, ensuring that on the private or the employment side, those who are employed will become better. But where there are others who are not, you need to think about how they can be catered for within the environment. And of course, the policy responses and interventions to steer the benefits of the AFCFTA to addressing poverty is an important intervention.
The study has three specific objectives. So first is to assess to what extent we have progress in implementing our regional economic communities free trade area. Some protocols are being implemented, some protocols a bit less implemented. And of course, as always at TCA, we would like in the end to come up with a product which is robust, analytical, well-researched, but also that contains some practical policy recommendations that we can implement. And third, to detail experiences in implementing FTAs in Southern Africa and really reflect on the question on how we can use COMESA and SADC and all their mechanisms and their complementary institutions to foster the implementation of both the FTAs and the AFCFTA.
The objectives of the study are to inform what is it that the FCTA can build on in terms of data key. Identify the areas of convergence and divergence in the instruments of the AFCTA and the RECs with a view to how can those divergences be addressed or convergences be built on to accelerate the implementation of the AFCTA in our region. And then identify the extent to which those instruments can be implemented, mirroring on the REC's progress and the complementarity that you can. Then, of course, advise the countries in terms of how do they move forward in utilizing the existing acquis to build on their commitments under the AFCTA. Harnessing regional integration for the AFCTA. AFCTA successful implementation in the Southern African region can be harnessed through the existing strides in economic integration and regional value chains in the manufacturing sector. Current industrialization benefits in Southern Africa, partner states can boost into-Africa trade under the AFCTA by increasing the economic viability of industrialization on the continent, boost trade and investment across the region. The AFCTA can leverage on SADC in its implementation in boosting trade and investment by sending out the message that investing in a SADC country will give you access to a wider market, we have said, of 1.3 billion. There are, of course, the usual challenges highlighted in the paper, which we need to address, but I believe in the symbiotic relationship between the RECs and the AFCTA, these are better addressed. These include the weak productive capacities, enhancing the productive capacities by accelerating structural transformation, and of course unleashing the potential of the private sector, give more priority to the private sector. In terms of conclusions, it is obvious that the FCTA has benefited greatly and can continue to benefit greatly from the progress made by the RECs in terms of their acquis of the FTAs, but a lot still remains to be done. One of the major recommendations is continued call on the countries to incorporate the commitments they make under the RECs and the FCTA in their national laws. That is still a gray area for us lawyers. That is absolutely important. Then, of course, strengthening productive capacities. All the countries say they are doing that. Elimination of NTBs, promoting regional value chains, addressing the multiplicity of memberships in the way that the paper elucidates, which I have kind of summarized. Continuously simplifying the rules of origin to make sure that they are a tool for industrialization, enhanced investment in regional value chains.